The reporter nearly got blown away during his coverage. So a reporter standing there with a microphone, why do they always do it? They want to look cool on the news. They want to show people, hey, look at me. I'm right in the middle of the storm. I'm a real reporter. We're going to look at two phrasal verbs that can be used to talk about hurricanes or natural disasters generally. Now, of course, important to remember that phrasal verbs have different meanings. And so one meaning might be useful for a natural disaster situation, but then there are other meanings that have nothing to do with that, okay? We're going to look at wipe out and blow away, okay? Now you might be able to imagine what those would mean in relation to a natural disaster, but I think the key thing is to look at some examples. So we're going to hop over to the blackboard and we're going to start with wipe out. Now think about, sometimes phrasal verbs make no sense, right? Why does this mean that? And the answer is usually, I don't know. But in the case of wipe out, I think it's actually somewhat reasonable. What is wiping? It's this action, right? Maybe you're cleaning something or removing something from a surface, or you have some schmutz on your face and you want to do that. You wipe it off, right? So to wipe something out it's wiped and it's gone after that. Well, that honestly is a pretty good way to think about what it means in relation to natural disasters. Okay, so there's a hurricane or a typhoon, or there are severe floods, right? A storm surge. In a typhoon or hurricane, the water that comes inland is called the storm surge, which causes massive flooding. What if it destroys a bunch of houses? What if it flips boats over? What if it knocks down trees? What if a whole area is basically flat or unlivable now as a result of this? And you could say tornado, you could say perhaps an earthquake, and you can use it in many other ways, but whole towns have been wiped out by floods. Really gives us a sense of how devastating the floods are. If we just say the floods were severe, okay, that sounds pretty bad, but I can't really picture that. But if I say whole towns have been wiped out, it's like they're flattened, they're gone, they're not even there. And so wiping out, wiped out is kind of extreme in that sense. It is quite strong as a thing that happens. How about this? A large percent of Europe was wiped out by the plague. You may have heard of the Black Death, which was around, I believe, between the 13th to early 16th centuries, perhaps, or the mid-16th centuries. I don't know the exact dates. But the plague was serious. The Black Death was a very terrible disease that was very severe in Europe and killed tens of millions of people. Hundreds of millions? I think tens of millions. A huge number, right? Okay, well, in that case, it's not the towns that are being wiped out, but the people. And it's so severe that you could say it as a percentage. So we're not talking about Europe, the place, the geography. We're talking about the people in Europe during the plague. A large percentage was wiped out. So obviously that's quite severe. And of course there's a negative connotation there. But we could talk about it economically. It doesn't have to be a plague or a natural disaster. It could be economics. Now then we're talking about another level. Then we might not be talking about people's lives, whether they are alive or dead, or whether their homes are there or not there. We might instead be talking about their bank accounts or their investment accounts, their investment savings. The recession is wiping out a lot of retirement investments. So this is something that happens when there is a recession or the market goes down. A lot of people put their money as they move toward retirement into these accounts that grow over time along with the market, maybe an index fund, and it goes up and up and up, and sometimes it goes down a little bit and up. but over the course of 20 years, it generally trends upward. Okay, great, but now it's time for me to retire. I'm 65 years old. I'm ready to retire. I'd like to cash out, please. But you hit the bottom of a hill, so maybe it's still higher than when you started, but it's not enough to retire on. So maybe there's a recession and they have to wait a little longer. Sometimes people have to work longer because they don't want to take out their investment savings. So the recession is wiping out a lot of retirement investments. That's their funds, their money, their earnings, their returns. I was wiped out after my walk. So imagine you go on a walk, you normally walk an hour, and then you go on a 2 or 3 hour walk, and you finish and you're just exhausted. You're flattened. You can barely move. You're so tired, your legs are aching. So you can say that you're wiped out. To be wiped out is usually extreme fatigue. Now, there are even more ways to use wipe out we're not going to talk about, but generally this is the idea. And I think from these, you can get a pretty good sense of how it's used. And when you see it, at least you know there's something extreme going on. Usually it's negative. There's kind of a destruction or taking away. And that's typically how it's used. Now we're going to look at blow away. And this is sometimes negative, but often the opposite in the sense that it is used in a positive a lot of the time. And you'll often see it written as, instead of blow, blown away. If someone says that they were blown away, that's not a negative thing. That's a positive thing. Very positive. They're amazed. They're shocked. They're so amazed. They can't believe how great it is. They can't believe how amazing it is. Now, sometimes that's used negatively. I was blown away by the level of corruption I saw. All right, well, that's about something negative, but most of the time it's used in the positive sense. So let's just take a look at a couple of examples here to get a sense for it. And I want to be clear, because we're talking about things we can use for hurricanes and natural disasters, that there is a literal physical meaning. The reporter nearly got blown away during his coverage. So a reporter standing there with a microphone, why do they always do it? They want to look cool on the news. They want to show people, hey, look at me. I'm right in the middle of the storm. I'm a real reporter. See how tough I am to stand in the middle of the rain. Why can't they just stand indoors and look out the window at the extreme wind and rain? Why do they have to go out in it and be blown over by it? But if it's so strong, you can find YouTube videos showing this, they will actually fall down. So and then they will be blown down the street. So they were actually blown away by the hurricane winds. The reporter was nearly blown away. Last time I played golf, I got absolutely blown away. So maybe I played golf with my brother or something, and I thought, oh, I'm going to do pretty well. I'm doing good. I've been practicing. But then he's so much better than me, so he absolutely destroys me. So in a competition, when one beats another, and it's not a small margin, it's a large margin, it's a huge amount, we can say that the one who loses is blown away. It's like a that's how badly you're destroyed by the other person. You could talk about teams this way. You could talk about competitions this way. This is getting blown away. It's not by a small margin. It's by a wide margin. But how about this? Your art blows me away. I'm amazed by it. I can't believe it. And this is not negative. Of course, this is positive. It blows me away how talented you are. I'm blown away by the attention to detail. When you're looking at the art, you can't believe of the shadows and the highlights and the texture of the fabric, how amazing the details are. And it's way above your expectations. You think it's amazing, so you say you are blown away by it. I would say blown away is actually much more common to see than blow away. Of course, blow away is fine. Blown is perhaps just more common because we talk about things we think are amazing more often than we talk about, for example, something like that this thing is doing it to me. We say usually, I am blown away, rather than it blows me away. So hopefully all of these are clear. Make sure you're working on your own examples if you want to get a sense for how to use them. Make your own examples. Practice what you learn, and it will be much easier to use them when you need them in the future.